Hello and welcome to Classy Handmade. Today I'll be showing you how to make a post-stitch beanie hat. So I'll be showing you how to make this hat. You'll need a 5mm hook, tape measure, yarn needle, stitch marker, and a worsted weight yarn. Today I'll be using I Love This yarn from Hobby Lobby. This yarn is 100% acrylic, 250 yards. So this will be enough to make a hat. So let's get started. You'll chain 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you go into the back loop from the second chain from the hook and do a single crochet into each stitch. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you have 8 single crochet in the back loop. Chain 1 and turn. So continue doing single crochet into the back loop. So we're doing a single crochet rib. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Chain 1, turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So continue doing your single crochet into the back loop until you get to your desired length. If you're making it for an adult, you need, for adult size, you need 21.5 to 22 inches. I will be doing a circumference of 22 inches. I did 72 rows, and this is a multiple of 2. So I'll show you how to join your 2 pieces together. Make sure that your yarn is on opposite sides. So you see both of my yarn are on the same side. So I'll do a next row and go back to the other side. Chain 1, okay, so you're on the opposite side. So I have my beginning row here and my finishing row on this side, so it must be on the opposite ends. So take my needle and I put it in turn, so you can see, and I'll pull that loop through. Okay, chain 1, and into that same loop you go into both loop, and then you go into the back loop of this on the other side. Okay, and you slip stitch. So go through both loop, then you go over to the back loop here and you slip stitch. Three, both loop, back loop, and you slip stitch. Okay, so this is how your hat will look. Let me zoom in and you could see this is how the back of your hat will look. So what you do is turn it that way, so you turn it over. Now you're going to do, so I'm going to be doing 72 single crochet around. So I'll chain 1, going to go into that same space and do a single crochet. Then you go into this stitch here and you do a single crochet. Then you go to the other one and do a single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't go into that big space there. Skip it and go over into the other. Then you go into here, 6, 7. Let me zoom in and show you where I'm going into. So I am in this ridge here. I'm going to go right here. 8. I'm not going to go into that big space here. I'm going to go over here. 9. Sorry. I'm going to go over in this ridge here. 9. Then I'm going to go right here. This 9, 10. Do not go into that big here because it's only going to make a bigger hole. So you skip over there and go into this. Stitch right here. You see where my needle is? You go into that stitch. So you continue doing that all the way across, single crochet, and when you finish with the single crochet row, do a double crochet row, and I'll meet you back at the end of the double crochet row. So I'm going to show you how to do the DC row. So I'm at the end of my last single crochet, and I'm going to single crochet, a slip stitch. I'm going to slip stitch into that chain 1 space. So we're going to do a row of double crochet. We're going to do a row of double crochet. So you're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and you're going to DC into each single crochet. The chain 3 is count as a double crochet, so that's your first double crochet, and you're going to double crochet into each single crochet stitch. So I have 72 stitches, so at the end I will have 72 double crochet. So repeat this row until you get to the end, and I'll reach you back at the end. So I'm at the end of my last double crochet, and I'm going to double crochet into my last single crochet, and at the top of the chain 3 I'll slip stitch. So far you had to look like that. For this next row, you'll single crochet into each DC stitch. So you chain 1. You can use each stitch marker to mark a chain 1 space. Chain 1, and you single crochet into that same space. And then you single crochet into each DC stitch. So continue single crochet into each DC stitch, and I'll meet you at the end. I'm at my last single crochet. Finish my last single crochet, and I'm going to slip stitch in a chain 1 space. So remove your marker and slip stitch into chain 1 space. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We'll be doing post stitches, so the chain 3 is count as your first double crochet. So you're going to wrap, do a front post double crochet into the next stitch. You didn't do it over the stitch that the chain 3 is over. You do it into the next stitch. So you skip a DC stitch and you do it into the next DC. The single crochet that is at the back of the post stitch, you'll skip that one and DC into the next single crochet. Then you skip a DC stitch and you post stitch in the next DC. Skip a single crochet and DC into the next. Skip a DC and front post on the next stitch. Skip a single crochet, DC into the next stitch. Skip a DC stitch and post stitch around the next. And you repeat this pattern all the way around, and I'll meet you back at the end. Okay, so I have a few stitches left to finish this row, so I'll show you again what to do. So you have a DC stitch there. I'm going to skip a DC at the bottom and front post on the next DC stitch. Skip single crochet, DC into the next single crochet. Skip a DC, post stitch around the next. Skip a single crochet and DC into the next single crochet. Okay, so this is my last stitch. I'm going to slip stitch at the top of the chain 3 chain. Okay, so that's how it's going to look. So that's how your hat look. I think I'm going to shift this one a little bit over here. Decided to move this single. Okay, so I'm going to slip stitch at the top. That's better. So let me zoom in and show you how the back of it looks so far. So that's what it looked like, and this is your last stitch you made. This next row will do single crochet. So you chain 1 and you single crochet into that same space. You can use your stitch marker to mark your chain 1 space. This is a 2-row repeat, so single crochet into each stitch, each DC, so you should have 72 if you're following my stitch count. If not, it's a multiple of 2, so you can do a multiple of 2 and just follow along with this pattern. So continue doing your single crochet into each DC stitch, and I'll reach you back at the end and we'll continue. Okay, so I'm at my last stitch. So I'm going to single crochet, and at the top of the chain 1 space, remove your marker. At the top of the chain 1 space, I'll slip stitch. I'll chain 3, 2, 3, and right here, chain 3. Remember, the chain 3s count as your first double crochet. So right here, I'll go around that stitch to make a post stitch. This chain 3 is over this stitch right here. Then you'll skip a single crochet at the back and DC into the next. Now this DC here will be over the post stitch that you made before. So you're going to be using the DC stitch here to make your post stitch. So you skip a post stitch and you DC post stitch, make a post stitch around the next DC. Then you skip a single crochet and DC into the next. This is the post stitch you made before. You're going to skip that and post stitch around the next stitch. Skip a single crochet and DC into the next. Skip the post stitch around the next DC. skip a single crochet and DC into the next. So you repeat that pattern to the end, and after you finish that, you do a single crochet, and then you repeat the post stitch pattern again until you get to 5 inches. When you get to 5 inches, I'll reach you back here and I'll show you how to start the decrease. So this is a 2-row repeat. So you finish your 5 inches of the body of the hat from the brim. So if you're at a single crochet row, you start to decrease. I will decrease by doing 7 single crochet and then a decrease stitch. So you chain 1 into that same space, you put 1 single crochet, then you single crochet 6 more times. 1, so it's 7 single crochet, then a decrease. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you decrease. 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, decrease. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, decrease. So you do this by pattern all the way around, 7 single crochet, and then a decrease stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end. So I'm at the end of my last of the row, at the end of the row, and I'll slip stitch in the chain 1 space. Okay, at this time you should have 64 stitches. So you chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to do 1 DC into each stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So continue to do 1 DC into each single crochet, and when you finish your DC rows, double crochet rows, you do a row of single crochet. So when you get to the end of the DC row, you slip stitch at the top of the chain 3 space, and then you chain 1 and you single crochet into each DC stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end of a single crochet row. So this is how your hat will look. So you should have 64 stitches. So you did a row of double crochet and you did a row of single crochet. So you're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and you're going to do a front post double crochet. Skip the single crochet and DC into the next. Skip 1 DC, post stitch around the next DC. Skip a single crochet, decrease, DC into the next. Skip a double crochet, post stitch around the next. Skip single crochet, DC into the next. and you will repeat this pattern all the way to the end. And after you finish that, I'll come back and show you how to decrease. So continue with this pattern. Skip one DC stitch, front post around the next, skip a single crochet, DC into the next single crochet. I'll meet you back at the end. So I'm at the end of my post stitch and DC row. I'm going to slip stitch into that chain 3 space, chain 1. I'm going to do 6 single crochet and then a decrease stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I'm going to DC into, do a decrease. So you do 6 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you do a decrease. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you do a decrease. So repeat this 6 single crochet and then a decrease, and you will have 56 stitches. And after you finish that row of single crochet decrease row, you do a double crochet row and then a single crochet row, and I'll meet you back at the end of the single crochet row. So I'm at the end of my single crochet row. I got 1 single crochet and slip stitch into that chain. One space, chain 3, 2, 3, and you'll do a post stitch around the stitch below, and you skip 1 single crochet and DC into the next single crochet. Sorry, I think you couldn't see. Let me do that over. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and you skip that stitch right here, and you do a post stitch around the next. You skip that this single crochet at the back there, and DC in the next single crochet. Skip that DC and post stitch around the next. Skip a single crochet and DC into the next single crochet. Skip a DC, post stitch around the next. You do a post stitch around the next DC. Skip a single crochet and DC into the next. Seem to be dropping my stitches. Skip this DC and put a front post DC around the next stitch. Skip a single crochet, DC into the next. Skip a DC, post stitch around the next DC. So you repeat that pattern all the way around, and then when you finish, you get to the end of the row, I'll come back and show you the next decrease row. So I'm at the end of my last stitch on this row. I'm going to do a post stitch around this DC. I'm going to skip that DC, single crochet behind, and I'm going to slip stitch at the top of my chain 3 space. Come on. Okay. So it'll look like that. Okay. We're going to do a decrease row. So we're going to do 5 single crochet and then a decrease. Chain 1, single crochet into that same space. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do a decrease. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Decrease. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Decrease. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. You do a decrease. So when you finish this row, you should have 48 stitches. So continue doing your decrease and I'll meet you back at the end of the row. So I'm at the end of the row of my decrease single crochet row. I'm going to slip stitch into the chain 1 space. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And you're going to, at this time, you should have 48 stitches or a multiple of 2. So I'll single crochet, I'll decrease DC into each single crochet. When you finish your decrease DC row, you slip stitch at the top of the chain 3 space, chain 1, and then you do a single crochet into each 48 DC. So continue DC, 1 DC into each single crochet. When you finish a DC round, do a single crochet round, and I'll meet you back at the end of the single crochet round. So I just finished my last single crochet and I'm going to slip stitch in the top of the chain 1 space. So I slip stitch in the top of the chain 1 space. So at this time you did your decrease single crochet row, then you do a DC in each stitch, and then you do a single crochet row, regular single crochet row, no decrease. So you should have 48 stitches. So we're going to do a row of post stitch and DC stitch. So you chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Then you front post on the next DC stitch. Skip a single crochet and DC into the next. Skip a DC and post stitch around the next. Skip a single crochet and DC into the next single crochet. Do a post stitch around the next DC. Skip a single crochet, DC into the next. Skip a DC, post stitch around the next. Skip a single crochet and DC into the next single crochet. And you repeat this pattern. When you finish with this row, your post stitch row, you'll do a decrease row. So finish with this row, and at the end of this row I'll meet you at the end, and we'll go ahead and do our decrease row again. So continue doing your post stitch and your DC stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end of this row. So I'm at the end of the row and I have 2 stitches. So I'm going to skip a single crochet and DC into the next single crochet, skip a DC and do a post stitch. Then I'm going to slip stitch at the top of my chain 3 space. And slip stitch. So you chain 1, and you single crochet into 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you do a decrease. 1, 2, 3, 4, decrease. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, decrease. Okay. One, 2, 3, 4, decrease. So repeat this all the way around. I'll meet you at the end of the row. So I finished my decrease row, and you should have 40 stitches. You chain 3, 1, 2, 3. You're going to single crochet into each, you're going to double crochet, into each single crochet. The first DC is a chain 3, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12. So continue doing your double crochet into each stitch, and after you finish the double crochet row, do a row of single crochet, and I'll meet you back at the end of the single crochet row. So this is going to be our last row of post stitches. So you're at a single crochet row, you chain 3, and you're going to do a post stitch around the next single crochet, around the next DC, sorry. Skip 1 single crochet and DC into the next. Skip a DC and do a post stitch. Skip single crochet, DC in the next. So you should have 40 stitches at this time. Skip a DC, do a post stitch, skip a single crochet and do a DC stitch. Skip a DC, do a post stitch, skip a single crochet and do a DC into that next single crochet. So you repeat this pattern all the way around. Single crochet, 2 stitches together. So we're just going to do decrease all the way around. To close the top of the hat. Before we do that, let me measure it and show you how many inches we have. We have, this hat is 10 inches from the brim to the top. So let's close it up. We have 40 stitches. So when we finish, we should have 20 single crochet. Slip stitch at the top of the trim to space. So we're going to end our hat here. So you should have 20 single crochet. You're going to cut your yarn, and you're going to pull through the slip, pull the end through. Then you're going to take your yarn needle and we're going to go in, out to close that. I like to do a double, make my yarn double so it will be secure when I pull it tight, it wouldn't. Okay, go in, out of this 20 stitches that you have at the top to close your hat. Okay. pull it tight. So this is what the top of a hat would look, how it would look. So just pull it tight and secure it. If you want, you could add a pom-pom at the top. I have a pom-pom here. This pom-pom I got it from Micheals, and I'll put this pom-pom. It's optional. If you like to add a pom-pom, you can. If you don't, you can leave it without. So I'm going to put this needle here. This pom-pom have an elastic. Oh boy, so seems like I cut my elastic. What a predicament, eh? Okay, I find it. So go through it. So see, this hat have some brown in it, so it would work. This pom-pom, the color of the pom-pom would work great for it. And I'll go inside the hat. I'll go through that elastic a couple of times to secure it properly to the top of the hat. So this particular pom-pom wouldn't be able to come off anymore when you're washing the hat. So I would suggest hand washing it. So you see, this pom-pom is secure to the top of the hat. So this is how this hat looks. I hope you understand this tutorial. I hope you like, share, subscribe, and come back for more how to make videos. So until next time, thank you. Bye.